Thank you for downloading this featured content podcast, and for this particular episode we are focusing on DM & Co here in central Solihull. The other side of the desk from me, we have two amazing local businessmen. Number one is Mr. Dominic Murphy. He's the founder and managing director of DM & Co, and sitting next to him is Mr. Craig Simmons. He is the sales director for DM & Co. Craig, I'll come to you in a second if I may. Okay. Dominic, firstly, could you tell me a little bit about the journey that DM & Co has had in central Solihull?
Sure. Hi there. We founded the business back in 2013, November 2013, so just come to the end of our fifth year, moving into year six. And what an exciting time. We've got an incredible team around us. Craig, who's sat next to me, and you'll hear from later, joined us around 6-7 months ago with a view really to assisting in the growth of the business. We were really fortunate to take our second office in Dorridge earlier this year. Came at a time that perhaps wasn't best for us, but the opportunity was there, and we thought, you know what, these things don't happen every day, so let's find a way to make it work.
Brilliant stuff.
Really pleased to now have a fantastic team across both offices, and actually we are super excited about what 2019 should bring to the business and to the local area, really.
Great. This featured content podcast is going to help the listener and the people that download this content in the process taking your house, effectively getting your house ready to go onto the market all the way through the process, and then hopefully, signing that exchange and getting the keys. So that is our aim for today. The business has grown organically, like you say, and you've been ahead of the curve in some ways, haven't you? Because the sort of level of service that DM & Co, you suggested that you weren't seeing that locally, and that was one of the reasons that you developed the business. Yeah. So where is it going now? What's unique about your style of moving in the market?
Yeah, I think it's important to point out that that there are plenty of good estate agents in the market, but I think what we offer that perhaps many of our competition or competitors don't is really attention to detail in the volume of clients that we act for. We don't sort of stack them high, sell them low. We've got anywhere between 30 and 50 agreed sales at any one stage, with around a similar amount of property available. It's perfectly manageable with the team that we have. I think sometimes that service levels can become a little stressed when you're dealing with much higher volumes, and perhaps the office hasn't grown at that rate, so you're understaffed. And
and having that person effectively chase up all of the things, because it is, and when we come to Craig in a minute, there is a process that it needs to follow.
Absolutely.
And one thing can't be done without another, and a lot of it is communication, isn't it?
Yeah, communication is key. Whether it's good news, bad news, it's better to have it out in the open. So we encourage our sales team and negotiators and progressors to be completely honest and transparent. At the end of the day, there's 9 times out of 10 going to be one side of the party that aren't going to be happy, and we're there to manage that process.
Excellent work. Right, moving on briefly to Craig. Craig, tell us where you've come from so that we understand your journey into DM & Co.
Yeah, I've been in estate agency for the best part of 30 years now. And I joined DM & Company, as Dominic said, just over 6 months ago, to have a look at the operational side of the business and help develop and grow the business. It was quite an easy decision for me to come and join DM & Company, because I've known Dominic for many years, and I've watched from a distance how well they've done in their customer satisfaction scores and their success rates, and the quality of the presentation of the properties that they put on the market was something, as one of their competitors, I used to look at and have a little bit of envy, if I'm being truthful. So it's great to be a part of that now, and to add my experience and my certain skills to the business, to hopefully make the business a little bit more rounded and a little bit more excitable. And as Dom said, it's a terrifically exciting time for the business at a time where the marketplace is really, really changing with Brexit and everything else that's happening out there. It's challenging for everybody that's involved in the business, and I'm as excited now to be an estate agent as I was 30 years ago as a younger man, much more
a negotiator,
absolutely
going in,
starting at the bottom and sort of learning my trade. I'm as excited now as I was then, because, as I say, I think this is a great opportunity. I think what DM and Company produce in the way of service and presentation, the quality of the people that they've got working behind their desks is phenomenal.
And that is a skill set, isn't it? And that has been developed by Dominic's leadership and getting the right people in the team in the right place.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out that you in a service industry, you're only ever as good as your team, and so it doesn't matter what we might think. At any certain level in the business, if the team that are dealing with the volume of calls and the transactions and the day-to-day aren't up to scratch, then the business does start to suffer.
The very, very best people in our business are the ones that are the most passionate. And we're lucky we've handpicked some really, really passionate people that go out and do a terrific role and a terrific job for our clients, and provide a service that I think is probably really required at this moment in time, with processes taking longer than they ever did before. Most people don't realise that when you sell a house with an estate agent, you're going to be in business with that agent for probably the best part of 6 months. So it's actually quite a lengthy process, and you need to make sure that you're instructing an agent that he's going to do the very, very best job that they can for you.
Let's begin then, Craig, if we may. Section 1.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I am.
I am deciding that my house is not quite the right house and I'd like to move on. Where do I start?
Okay, I think this is the part of the industry that hasn't changed for the last 30 years. So that people were doing this and using this selection process 30 years ago.
Right.
So I think people look at possibly local boards, local newspaper advertising, maybe via the internet to see what type of a brand or what type of an estate agent they're looking for. They'll then typically call 2 or 3 of those agents that they really like, and they'll have what we call a market appraisal, which is a valuation on their property, where the representative from that particular firm will go out, talk to them about the marketplace, talk to them about the values of their house, talk to them about the specific things that agent is going to do and the USPs that agent is going to offer that client. They'll talk about the necessary fees involved. And then the client, i.e. the seller, will then make a decision on which agent
to go with
they prefer.
Right, and that could be fees related at 1, 2 or 1.5% of the purchase price.
There's a wide range of estate agents out there, and I think that the instant arrival of internet agents has definitely has mixed things up a little bit, really, because I think there is a certain amount of the public that perhaps want a cheaper fee.
And there's also flat fee, isn't there?
There is a flat fee and there's also a percentage fee. And I think percentage fees tend to be the most rewarding for the client because the agent is working on a percentage, and the more that they get for their client, the more money that they're going to earn.
Yeah.
And I think tendency is if you've got an offer of £400,000 and you're going to get an extra £200 as an estate agent, if you get an extra £5,000 on that price, you're probably going to push a little bit harder for them.
Okay, so that's section number 1. So we've decided on the agent, and then from that market appraisal, we've got a valuation. The agent will presumably then come back with a very clever camera setup and work out what's going on. What, as the vendor, do I need to get ready in the house?
Once again, it very much depends on the house. Some houses are beautifully presented and there's nothing that needs to be done. Some houses are empty, which are a little bit more challenging to make look attractive, and some houses need a little bit of dressing and a little bit of staging. We employ a professional company that takes our photographs, and we're with that photographer on the day that they take the photographs to help them stage the room and make sure that, let's be honest, they're photographers, they're not estate agents. We know where the best angle is.
Sure.
We know what the power rooms are, where the money rooms are, and we'll help that photographer through staging the room and getting the right angles and the right lighting to making sure that the property is presented to the absolute maximum attractiveness that it can be.
Sure.
Because when it goes online and it goes to the public, the visual aspects of the property are the most important things. They're the things that draw people in. They're the things that draw the buyers in initially. And if the photograph isn't strong enough or good enough, then you're going to be 1-0
You're on the back foot already, aren't
yeah.
you? And you need that positivity to get going.
And I think that's exactly why we strive to provide free professional photography with all of our listings, which is something that no other agent in the area does. And we do that because it is, it's marketing. Estate agency is marketing. We have to present properties in their best light. The properties have to look as good as they possibly can in order to get the right volume of people through the front door. More people through the front door, more opportunities for us to close sales.
Exactly.
And it's also another reason that we prefer vendors not to carry out their own viewings, because our sales staff can dig deep, handle objections, and make sure that that any questions on the day are answered and not just sent through via email and perhaps lost.
Exactly,
or,
and then it's communication
momentum's
again.
lost, etc., etc. So we like to strike while the iron's hot, get in front of the people, make sure the photographer's there, and yeah.
I think it was clear to me when I first met Dom, sort of 4 or 5 years ago, that his frustrations when he brought a property that made him invent DM and Company was born out of frustration and born out of just generally couldn't understand how people could do such an average job. And I think one of the things that he said to me that always sticks in my mind is that our product as estate agents is the house. That is our brand. We're only as good as the house. We can have a great for sale board. We can have a great heading on our advertising.
Yeah, lovely logo.
But generally, our product is our house. So why wouldn't you, as an estate agent or an owner of an estate agent, want your product presented at the absolutely most beautiful way possible? And that's what we've done. So we've handpicked the photographers that we use. We only use 2. And we'll wait 2 or 3 days for them to go out and take a photograph because we know once it goes live, that's the power and that's the big key for us.
And we believe in it that much that we pay that photographer. It's not one of the guys in the office with an expensive bit of kit.
Yeah,
it's a third party company that come in and take the time, get to know the vendor, get to know the property, and we take that hit at day one when we don't get paid until the end of the process.
Exactly.
Because of the importance of making properties look as sexy as they can.
When we get the client's full buy-in on photographs, so we send the photographs to the buyer and to the vendor and say, "Are you happy with that photograph before we go live?" Because once it goes live, the impact, the impetus is made, and we can't pull it back.
Which moves us into section number 2. As soon as you take all of the particulars and you put it out there into the wider public, that's it. You've laid your stall out, as it were, for that particular property. Where does it go next? Because you've obviously, in the olden days, Craig, and you've been in this industry for a long time. It used to be print media and word of mouth, and people had to walk past your window to see the photo.
They did, and I think 30 years ago, the position of the high street that your office was in was important.
Yeah.
The newspaper that you advertised in was important. Nowadays, it's one-stop shop, and I think that's the thing that has changed. I think the buying of a house has changed dramatically over the years that I've been involved in the industry. And what's happened, I think, now is that Rightmove, Zoopla, On the Market, the big portals, everybody's properties is on there. So from a buyer's point of view, it's fantastic. You can sit down within two hours. You've got every single property in that location available for you to have a look at. You can do your Google search. You can get the little man and take him up the street and see what the street looks like. You can do the research on the schools. So a lot of the homework is done off the information that we give them as estate agents. And that photograph, that description, those core things are the things that are going to hopefully encourage a viewer or a buyer to get out of their house and go and book a viewing.
And do you see that relatively quickly? So let's say we have a new instruction and it goes straight on into, let's say, Rightmove or Zoopla or whatnot. And then are you seeing an initial peak of 5, 6, 7 viewings?
Yeah, immediately.
Immediately.
It's instant. So whereas years ago, you'd wait for somebody to drive past the board. You'd wait for Thursday for the newspaper to come out, and that's when people would contact us.
But
and
now it's...
Yeah, years ago, we employed more people on a Thursday because that's the day that the paper came out.
Yeah.
And we knew we were going to be busier on the phones that day. Nowadays, you send something live at on a Thursday night. On Friday morning, you're coming back into the branch and you've got 20 leads on the property.
Wow.
And we're fortunate enough with Solihull that, our marketplace is such that it's very, very sort of widely hunted from buyers.
Exactly, in terms of the schooling, in terms of the careers and the job prospects,
the location,
the state of affairs with the town centre and things like that.
It's got everything. It ticks every single box, and whether you're a first-time buyer or whether you're a buyer that's moving to their executive house, it's got everything.
I've always said as well, Solihull. Within an hour, you're in the Peak District. Within an hour, you're in the Cotswolds, and you can get over into Wales quite quickly. And it's right there, isn't it?
And our decision to go into Dorridge, Dom's decision to go into Dorridge was fueled off the back of HS2. From Dorridge you're into London with an hour and 15 minutes at the moment. That's set to get much quicker when HS2 is built.
And
so it's a great
the transport links are really beginning to develop in our part of the world, isn't there? That we're starting to link in with the NEC and what's happening at Resorts World and things. So I see where the development plan's gone, and maximum kudos to you. Mm-hmm. Excellent work. Okay, so we've got the viewing. We've had, let's say, 6 people come in, and off the back of that, you've had 2 people in a strong enough position in terms of their finances to make an offer on that property. You then take on the negotiation between the vendor and the buyer. And then what happens next? Because there's lots of processes in that bit, isn't there?
There is. Once a sale's been agreed and once a figure has been agreed on both parties, solicitors are then instructed.
Okay.
We would take precautions to make sure that any buyer had got their mortgage in place.
Sure.
Make sure that they're instructing good solicitors. A solicitor that isn't so good could cost you an extra month or an extra 6 weeks on the whole transaction time. May even cost you the sale in the end if they can't move things quickly enough.
Sure.
And then the process is very much down to the legal side and the legal people to do their work.
Okay, so it's searches, it's surveys, and it's checking the finances.
It pretty much is, and that process can take anywhere up to 2 to 3 months nowadays, depending on what the length of the chain is, depending on how active or proactive the solicitor is, depending on which bank or building society they're taking their mortgage through. Just getting a mortgage appointment nowadays it can be long. I remortgaged my house 2 or 3 years ago, and it took me 4 weeks to get a mortgage appointment with the bank that I currently existing
customer.
It was quite amazing, really. So. It does take a bit longer than it used to.
Now, this is the part of the process where things fall down, isn't it? Like you said, there's a chain, somebody else further up or below doesn't quite nail everything into place, and then that puts your particular move into jeopardy as well. Yep. And then let's say it all falls down, you effectively have to go back to market again.
We have to go back to the market and we start the whole process again.
Right. Okay. Let's not dwell on that as a focus. Let's move on. So we've got to the bit where all of the surveys have come back, all of the searches have come back, and the solicitors are ready. What is the process, or how does the process then work? Because presumably it's you going to a solicitor with a pen.
Yeah, it is nowadays. I mean, a lot of it can be done online.
Right.
Some solicitors still prefer people to go into their office and sign the contract and go through everything with them. Mm-hmm. And then once that's done, deposits are paid, funds are available, then usually completion dates are agreed. Once again, in Solihull, you tend to get chains that are quite lengthy because you've got a first-time buyer at 200 or 250, and the top of the chain could be into the
millions,
1.5, 2 million, 2.5. Right. And in between that, you could have half a dozen people all moving house. So getting the date and the agreement on the date and making sure that everybody's happy with those dates takes an awful long time and a lot of effort to put into place. We've got our own contract chasing team in Solihull that look after that. So that's all they do. They look after the sale from the minute that it's agreed to the minute that we pass the keys over to the buyers.
And with a small chain, could it be signing the contracts and completing on the same day? Could you do that, or is that not?
Most solicitors will prefer a little bit of time between exchange and completion. We do simultaneous. That does happen, but the majority of the time they'll exchange on the Thursday and complete on the Friday, or they'll exchange on the Friday of the one week and then complete on the Friday of the next. Completion is usually Fridays, purely to take in the weekends for people to get the house ready for living.
Okay, and that is, when you say completion, that is handing over your set of keys
to the new buyer.
To the new buyer, bottle of champagne and a bunch of flowers.
And it's their new home, you know, it's
Yeah.
the new chunk of their life, isn't it? It's a massive, massive day for them.
The biggest purchase ever.
I think
Until next time.
Until you move on, yeah.
The most emotional purchase as well. I think it's the most emotional purchase you ever make. Because I think buyers do tend to buy on emotion. People walk into a house and think, gosh, I really want to live here, or I can really live here.
Yeah.
And it's an emotional journey. And as you said, it can get a little bit tough and it can get a little bit difficult at times. And there is quite a lot of things that have to happen for the sellers of the property to hand the keys over to the buyers of the property.
Just to summarise your points, Craig, which are very well made, by the way. So we've got that initial stage of choosing the agent. We've then got the marketing stage that Dominic was suggesting, and that is effectively the USP of DM & Co, isn't it? Using the high-end marketing skills that you guys have got. We've then got the viewing and the negotiation phase. We've then got the solicitors phase, and then, of course, the completion and you know, the acceptance and the moving into the new property. Now, you guys, like you say, that could be 6 months of working with you, isn't it? It's not just a transaction that you go to the shop, flash your card against a reader, and then it's done. So there must be a relationship issue as well that you develop.
I think it's an experience issue. I think it's just dealing with different circumstances. Every house and every transaction is different. Every buyer's needs and requirements are different. Every vendor's necessities are very, very different. And it's just knowing what they are and making sure that we're making the right phone calls to the right people to make things happen. Because I think that's the other problem nowadays, is that people that perhaps haven't been in the business that long tend to make the right calls to the wrong people to make things happen, or speak to the right people, but they're the wrong course. So
right.
I think it's just knowing and having that experience. Dominic's incredibly experienced in the property market. So am I. Most of our staff are in their 40s plus.
Yeah.
You know, so they've been around. They've all bought and sold houses. They're all local people.
Right.
And having that relationship and experience within the people that work for us, I think does make the journey just a little bit easier.
And it's like Dominic was saying earlier on, you've got maybe 30 to 50 people houses working at once, and each one of those you're providing a bespoke journey for. So that's your relationship, isn't it, that you've developed?
Absolutely, yeah. The emotional roller coaster of buying and selling houses.
Yeah,
It's exciting, you know, and we do become particularly close to some clients. You know, it's lovely when the flowers, chocolates, and drinks flow into the office as thank yous come in. But no, it is a really important chapter in both the buyer and sellers and life cycle, really.
I think it's a thing that they remember, and you know, the amount of business that we get from referrals from people that have used us before, or people that know somebody that's used us. That's an important part of the pat on the back that's nice for us, that we sold for their brother and now we're selling for them.
Okay, and repeat business as you move forward.
Absolutely.
Right, sorry. Just to move on in terms of what we're discussing in our podcast, if you have just downloaded, we have been discussing the process as we move forward through the buying and selling phases of property here in central Solihull. Quick question for you, Craig. You know, in 90 days' time, lots of things are going to change in comparison to the UK and what's happening in Central Europe. What are we seeing in our property market in central Solihull? Are we seeing ripples of uncertainty, you know, almost based on the 2008 uncertainty that we had in the market? What are you seeing there out on the ground, as it were?
Yeah, I think initially we saw a lack and a drop off of activity. So I think when it was first announced, and you know, some people talked about the property market perhaps going through a difficult period. We did see a resistance to people buying houses for the first couple of weeks. There's no two ways about that. But I think over the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've sort of picked up again.
Right.
And I think Solihull is very, very well protected. We're really fortunate to work in Solihull, Dorridge, Knoll, those kind of areas. And you talk about the credit crunch of 2008. Solihull was one of the few places that the prices didn't change in the credit crunch because people just stayed put. And in many ways, and many roads, actual houses went up in value because there weren't enough people that wanted to sell. So buyers had no choice, so they had to pay a little bit higher.
Good old supply and demand.
The supply and demand factor is huge, especially in an area like Solihull. There's always people that are going to want to move in for the schools. There's always people that are going to be doing better for themselves, that want a slightly more status type of property.
Sure.
There'll be always people that are making money out of whatever economy we're operating in. So the bottom end of the market, the middle end of the market, and particularly the top end of the market is really, really strong. And Don will tell you, I think the top end of the market in particular over the last few weeks has been really strong.
Was it?
Yeah, I mean, we've completed on, I think, this month or certainly in the last 4 weeks, 2 houses in excess of £1 million.
Wow.
Both of those properties, not high level of interest in terms of number of viewings, but both sales agreed in the first weekend of listing the properties. So there is demand. As Craig has said, there's demand at every level, at every stage of the journey. It's just making sure that properties go to market with a realistic price tag. Nobody wants their property sat, potentially overpriced. I know people. Human nature is that you tend to go.
What can I get? What can I get?
Exactly. You push as hard and as high as you can.
Yeah.
But it does your property absolutely no good when in 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 9 weeks, the agent's pushing for a reduction. It comes back to getting one opportunity to really hit the market, hit it well, and generate that interest and footfall within the first sort of 2 weeks.
And I think it's interesting that we've taken a couple of houses quite recently off other agents that have been on the market a while, and their agent were telling them that the market isn't very good, it's a bit slow. We put them on the market and sold them for above the asking price. So I think possibly some agents are confusing the market being difficult with the market being not very good. I think it is more difficult to put deals together because I think the buyers are probably looking to make sure that they get the very, very best deal that they can.
Okay, moving that as a development point, what are buyers currently looking for in a property in our area?
Well, if I'm talking certainly from the office in Shirley, we do not have enough 3-bed semis.
Right.
3-bed semi-detached property across B90. It's like a supermarket selling out fruit and veg.
Wow.
As soon as they come on, they go. And we have a database of people, looking to be on certain roads in and around Solihull and Shirley.
Exactly, and that's school-based roads and things.
School-based, Tudor Grange catchment's a big one.
Yeah.
So, 3-bed semis in Tudor Grange catchment area, 4-bed detached. I mean, typically, if you've got a property between 250 and 350, you would expect to be agreeing a sale within a month of listing. Okay. And that can, with some sales, we're agreeing some sales on properties before we even take them to market. So a lot of people think to the strength of Rightmove, and Rightmove, surely if my property's on Rightmove, then it will sell. Well, that's less than half the job. We pride our agency on having an incredibly strong database, and it's the database that we have that allows us to put properties through it and generate viewings before, in some instances, we even hit Rightmove.
Wow.
So again, that's just another sort of proactive approach, if you like, of things that we do that perhaps others don't.
Yeah, sorry. I think another thing that we've seen since the market has allegedly tightened up is that we've seen more off-market sales being conducted. So we've put a couple of sales together quite recently where properties never went live on Rightmove. So our vendor or our client had instructed us that they wanted to sell. If we could get the right person through the front door, they would look at offers. We've managed to do that without it ever going to the market. And so, I think sometimes, there are properties out there that never appear on Rightmove. And that's perhaps where the new modern system of buying a house doesn't work. It works to a disadvantage of the buyer, because actually by not talking to the estate agent, by not visiting the estate agent, they don't actually know what is around the corner or what might be on the market that isn't available.
And interestingly, last week I had a lady pop into the office in Dorridge, and she was looking for a 4-bed. She wanted one of a number of particular roads in Dorridge. And I referenced that we'd just sold a road on Knollwood Road, and she was completely confused. She said, "Well, I didn't see that one come on. I look at them. I get the right move alerts every single day. How did I miss it?" I said, "Well, you missed it because unfortunately you weren't registered with us, and we sold that before it hit the market to." I've got a list of people that are looking for properties in Dorridge in particular, anywhere between 800 and 1.5 million. Off the strength of that list alone, we can carry out viewings without having to take stuff to the market and to not necessarily have time wasted. But when you have a serious vendor and a serious buyer, if you can match those up before having to do 30 viewings, and deal with all the necessary qualification thereafter, everybody wins and everybody's happy.
Exactly.
And people like their privacy as well. I mean, that's the one person, that one particular client, they didn't want to know, they didn't want neighbours knowing, they didn't want the internet knowing that they were selling their house.
And I think celebrities and sort of A-listers and footballers that want to sell, they don't want people knowing that their property's on.
And looking at the photographs of every room.
From our point of view as well, it saves the sort of the window shoppers that just want to have a look at somebody that they know's house. So it works both ways. So it works in favour of the buyers, and it also works in favour of the sellers.
Just to finish off then today, gentlemen, and thank you very much, by the way, for downloading this podcast. This is our introduction to the house buying process, supported by DM & Co. And if you've enjoyed listening to how we've gone through the process, please check out our next one. It is going to be about conveyancing and the processes individually through each of the solicitor's processes, rather. And that will be a featured content podcast following on from this. So that will be episode 2. But just moving on, firstly, thank you very much for coming into the studio today. We've got a lot of information that we need to take and think about. Where do you see it going? What's happening next 2 years, let's say, in Solihull?
Oh, it's a difficult one. I think that the market has. We've been lucky. The market has. What am I trying to say here? Has it peaked? We've got HS2 coming around the corner in 3 or 4 years. I believe that it probably has peaked. As Craig sat next to me, yes, I think it's peaked. I think there was only so far that prices could continue to grow at the rate that they had. Sure. So I think that we probably have come to a natural peak. There just needs to be a bit of there's a plateau now, and I think that's one difficulty that we perhaps as agents face on a daily basis is vendors' confidence has grown with that market and is perhaps of the opinion that the house is worth more than it is. Yep. Because all they read is that house prices have grown, etc., etc., etc. I think at the end of the day, a house is only worth what somebody's prepared to pay for it. Of course. And you can kill your instruction or your listing or your potential sale by putting it on the market for too much money. There you go. I think we're as we've mentioned before, we're very, very fortunate to be active in an affluent area, with Birmingham doing as well as it's doing, with the local schooling, transport links. Yep. All of that really does work in our favour. So I don't feel that we're going to slip, but I don't think we're going to continue to grow at the rate we have done. And finally, it's not sold until it's sold, is it? Oh, God, no. It's not sold until you've got the keys. Until you've got the keys. Until the money's in the bank, it's not sold. Lots of people say, as soon as that sold sign comes up on your front drive, I walk past and think to myself, that's not sold until they're actually out and doing that. No, there's an awful lot of work to do. Once the sold board goes up, that's when the real skillful work starts. Very cool. That's really where the estate agent makes their money. How can we get in touch? Where do we go to have a look at what you guys have got on the books at the moment and things like that? So we're pushing our Facebook page. We're looking to list all of our new instructions go via our Facebook page before they hit the open market, as well as our database. So if you're a buyer, please do get in contact with the office on 0121 775 0101. You can visit our website, dmandcohomes.co.uk. But primarily, Facebook is where we like to drive the traffic. We're always available at either office, so the Shirley office, the number I just gave you, or the Dorridge office.
And it's a Google search straight through to you, isn't
Google
it?
search straight through. Yeah. We're not hiding. Please do come and find us.
I think we put updates on Facebook as well to let the local people know because we've got quite a lot of followers now, and we let the local people know what the market's doing and whether Brexit is having an effect or not. So it's worth following our Facebook just for the updates.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time today, gents. I'll see you in episode 2.
Thank you. Thank you.